no amount of planning it can prevent a lot of what comes at you. We manage assets from A class to C class. We manage stuff, high end rents, low end rents, everywhere in between. The fundamentals of management are the same, whether it's $2,000 a month rents or $500 a month rents. The fundamentals are the same.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grenzig, and with me, but not beside me, is John Cohen. John, how you doing?
I'm doing good. And we got a special guest today.
Yeah. If anybody's watching, you can see our little guest, baby Lulu. If you're not watching and you're listening, I highly recommend you go over to YouTube and watch this because she's adorable and she's our new host. What's our third co-host? Why don't you introduce her, John?
Exactly. We have our third special co-host and a great guest, but our little special co-host, my 7-month-old beautiful little baby girl, little Lucy. Lucy, say hi. Yeah.
Hey, Lucy.
I didn't think so, but
that would have been a phenomenal first couple of words.
Oh, it would have been. No, she's here. My wife.
At least it would have been recorded, right?
Exactly. No denying it. No, my wife's at a doctor's appointment, so I'm on baby duty today. And we brought her out to the world. We get to see Lulu in action on our podcast.
There we go. Awesome. Well, I'm super happy to have her. Next time she'll have to be in the office beside us.
Yes.
Not necessarily over virtual. Without going too much into it, we got an awesome guest on today. One of our property managers up in Columbus, got a lot of insight I think he's going to be able to offer to a lot of people. And also I think we'll be able to ask some pretty good questions and get some good dialogue going. But with that being said, Nick, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate the invite to be on the podcast. Excited to be with you guys.
Awesome. Fantastic. Why don't you just jump right in, tell people a little bit about who you are, how you got started in the business, investing, kind of a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as Chris said, my name is Nick Harpster. I am one of the managing partners at Link Real Estate Group. We're a property management firm that is located in Columbus, Ohio. Our corporate address is actually in Upper Arlington for folks that are familiar with the Columbus market. But I have been in property management for my entire career, which is actually going on north of 15 years at this point. Prior to starting Link Real Estate, our company, I came out of a development background, so I worked for a large local real estate development company. At that point in time that I started with them, I was actually an intern in their shop and got started and worked with them for close to 12 years. During that period of time, I moved through different roles with them and ultimately ended up running their property management shop. And in 2015, stepped out, decided that, I felt like there was a significant void in the local property management market for quality third-party management. There's actually a lot of good property management. There's a lot of good operators in Columbus. That's what a lot of people don't know, but most of the good operators, in my opinion, are owner operators. They're people that own real estate locally. They may be a developer, an owner. They've built impressive shops and good operations, but they don't really offer that service on a third-party basis. So we decided to step out and try to bring, the same disciplines, the same quality level that we applied as an owner operator, and we tried to bring that to for sale into the third-party space. Mm-hmm. I think we started in 2015. Since that point in time, I think our first contract that we took on was about a 12-unit multifamily deal, so just a small project. And since that time, we've grown to close to 3,500 units under management. And we're excited about that growth. We've grown very quickly. I think made a lot of good relationships at this point in time. I think our thesis, so to speak, has proven to be correct, that there is high demand for good third-party operators locally in multifamily management. And we've sort of taken the approach, I think you guys, your firm, your shop is a good example of one where we've tried to work with fewer clients, but really work with clients that we can build a partnership with, that we can build a relationship with, and say, hey, we want to function as your local, boots on the ground, your trusted, partner in this market, because I would say that the majority of our clients are folks that are out of state. They're people that don't have local shops, and they need somebody here that can that they can trust to do their management. And so I would say probably 75-80% of our clients are that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually take the approach of we want to grow our business along with yours. And so I think actually, John, our first deal that we did together was I don't know how many units was it, John? 40 some units.
It was 48 units back in 2015, give or take, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. So you were one of our early on clients. I mean, it was 40 unit deal. It was not anything earth shattering, but we did a lot of work like that for people where we just said, hey, we want to build relationships, and if we can come in and do a good job with you on 40 units, and then as your business grows, our business grows. We want to make the decision to come back and work with us really simple. That's the approach that we've taken all along, and we've been able to build those relationships so that we can grow.
Nice. And I think you said that company you're working for prior to starting your own was an owner operator, right?
They were an owner operator. Yeah. They when I started with them, they were a smaller shop, great company, great outfit. We built a fantastic operation there. I was really proud of my time that I had there, and still think very highly of that outfit. I just, I was at a point where always wanted to, I believed in myself, always wanted to own my own company, and wasn't getting any younger.
Sure.
Was having kids like baby Lulu there,
Mm-hmm.
and decided that 2015 was the right time to step out and try to make it happen.
I hear you. What was or is there any big differences coming from an owner operator side and building out, strictly third party management? Did you have any struggles that you didn't anticipate moving into that space?
Yeah, I mean, yes, certainly. I mean, I came out of a space as a when you work for an owner operator, you've essentially got one client,
right.
And you can kind of build your programs, you can build your processes all around meeting the expectations of one client, which is the group that you work for. And so one of the challenges, I think, is that I said we try to have fewer clients but more business with them. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the thought process, and the whole idea behind that is just we want to be flexible. We want to be able to have our company deliver what our client is looking for, and every client's a little bit different. So that was a bit of a learning curve. We had to learn to be maybe not just one size fits all, but a little bit flexible with our clients, and say, hey, this group prefers it done this way, and that group prefers it done a different way. And usually if we're working with the right clients, you tend to find that, your clients are flexible with you as well. And you just try
Mm-hmm.
to meet in something that works for everybody. And so we've run into very few issues with that, but I think it was definitely there was a learning curve to that.
For sure. And, I think a lot of people are, going to be wondering from your side, right? Because we talk to a lot of people on our side, on the investor side and things like that. What are some of the most important things you see when you are deciding to work with an investment group, an investor, and the properties they're looking at? What are the things that you like to see? What are some of the things you don't like to see, or things that are kind of a deal or relationship killer?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I would tell you that we whenever we're talking to a prospective new client, we understand very well that they're generally interviewing us to see if we're the right management company for them, to see if our capabilities sort of match what they're looking for. And so they're usually firing questions at us, but what I tell them is, like, we're also trying to figure out if you're the right client to fit with us. And, there's a certain amount of chemistry that goes into that. I think that, we've had a great relationship with you. We have a great relationship with really the vast majority of the clients that we work with. Very, very few times have we missed on that, where we brought in a client where there just was not great alignment between our two camps. And, what I said, what I tell folks sometimes is it seems like there's the potential for this inherent conflict that can come in between owner and operator, where, that the owner, feels like the only way that they can get results out of their manager is by really, beating on them. And I'd say, guys, we're not that company. We're not a group that I have no interest in that. We don't need to be motivated by being kicked. That's not it. You can trust that we're busting our butts on our end. Property management's a tough business, and it's not always perfect. It's just the way that it is. We've got, with you guys working with us going all the way back to 2015, we've experienced some of those bumps along the way, and we want to work with clients that get that. And so, we're looking for a group that is growth oriented. We want to grow in our business. We're 4 years into our company. We haven't been around for 100 years. We want to keep growing. And part of the way that you grow is by working with shops, whether it's like yours or plenty of our other clients they're trying to grow their business as well. And we can say, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to kick butt for you. We're going to act in your best interest, and we want to help you grow your business. And as you grow, we grow, and everybody wins, sort of a thing. And so we're looking for growth oriented clients. We're looking for clients that have good chemistry between our camps, just the way that we work together. And I would also say that we try to find clients that there's good alignment between their vision for their investment and, not only our capabilities. I'm the first one to call out, like, we're not the right group for you. And, I'm proud of the fact that in 4 years as a startup company, a relatively new company, we've said no to quite a bit of business. And that's an important discipline to have. We've also said yes to some business that we shouldn't have. And, and that doesn't usually turn out great for either party. And so we just, we try to be very realistic with people on the front end, kind of give them a straight answer. There's not a lot of salesmanship that goes into that. And if there's good alignment between our groups, then maybe there's a path to working together. And if there's not, it's better to identify it early on and say, hey, you know what? We're probably not the right group for you, or you're not the right group for us. And you sort of tie things up at that point. But when I talk about their vision for the property, it's like, what are they trying to accomplish with it? I had breakfast earlier this week with the owner of another management company. He talked about how, if a client comes in and buys a deal and works with him, if that client sells the deal in like anything under 3 years, he basically said, I'm not even going to take their call or respond to an email from him. He talked about how frustrated he would get, at clients for that type of thing. And I challenged him. I pushed him on it. And I said, yeah, I see the world very differently. If it's in the best interest for the client to offload and they can be successful with their investment and, pay their investors or do whatever their business plan was, they're going to come back to you, and they're probably going to come back to you twofold.
Sure.
And that's what we've done. It's like, but we try to cross that bridge early on. It's like, hey, you know what, if your plan on this thing is turn and burn and, you're buying a deal and you want to reposition it and then exit it. And we get that. We can help you do that. It's usually good that we know what your plan is going in so that we can help so we can help deliver it.
Let me ask you a question, because I think you just touched on really, really important stuff from a standpoint of owner, like an owner like us and someone like you. Would you rather, because I know I had a call today from a buddy of mine. He said, hey, I'm selling my deal. My management and company has no idea about it, but the buyer wants to do due diligence in 6 days. So I said, you got to start, you got to have that conversation already. You can't just hit the manager with, oh, we're selling and they're doing due diligence. So as an owner of the management company, like a group, my group very well. We've come in, we've bought deals. We're what we try to accomplish. Would you rather the owner be upfront in the beginning with the game plan, or not? I mean, I know it's a sort of a loaded question, but I think understanding the game plan is more important, right?
No question. I mean, that ties back to, we want to be a trusted partner. This is our approach on it, and understandably, this may not work for every owner and every manager out there, because their manager may not take the same position. But it's like, hey, we want to be we want to be under the tent with you guys, and know what you're trying to accomplish with it. And certainly it's the best interest it's great for us when we got a client that buys a deal and wants to manage it wants to own it long term, and say, hey, Nick, we want your team to sort of, dial this thing in, and you're going to own it and operate it for the next 10 years. That's great. But certainly, I think it's sort of an indicator of a lack of trust, really, when you don't want to bring your manager in for fear of how they'll react to it. Like, if you've got the right manager on the other end of the phone, they should get that. And certainly then, even from a selfish standpoint, understanding that there's real people on the other end of that phone call on your manager's side, right? There's people that might be placed at the site. There's property managers and maintenance guys, and these people, I assume we'll talk at some point in time about sort of our approach and what we try to do to drive, deliver results. But part of that is saying, like, people's jobs are sort of on the line with these types of things. And if I can, I'm proud of the fact that we have off-boarded accounts. We have in some cases, had clients that, whether they've sold their property or whether they've went a different direction, we've offloaded an account for one reason or another. And we've had very, very few scenarios where we've had to let employees go. Now, part of that's because we're pretty growth oriented and we've grown our business quite a bit. But the more heads up you can give your manager of what you're thinking, it allows them to plan to say, how do I retain this maintenance guy or this property manager? How do I shift them around and keep great people? Because that's really the name of the game for the manager, is having the best people. And the more notice you give your manager, the more likely they'll be able to prepare for that.
See, I'm a believer of that as well. We've been criticized by some of our management companies, and I think anyone in this business, and I think you could speak to, because you were on the, you saw what an owner operator did, to maintain a relationship with a manager through ups and downs in sales and acquisitions for 5 years is not an easy task. But we take the same approach. We go into a deal. The deal we just purchased, we had a clear, defined plan going into it. We all understood that. So not only does the on-site staff know, so they don't have to worry about if they're getting, whether they get fired because they're not doing a good job, that's not my responsibility, or partially not my responsibility. But they all know the mission here is to get this to the finish line. And even when we first started working together in 2015, that deal came together. And without Nick, I can truly say without Nick, I don't know where that deal's at. We had a bona fide incompetent property management on the other end who was borderline criminal. And Nick came in and saved the day. I look like the hero to my investors, but Nick was. But, I remember the kid that was working on site there at that point in time. I flew to Columbus. He's blowing leaves in the backyard. He's still with Nick now in a different role, I'm sure. But those are the type of guys that, when they understand the business plan going in, it's a totally different approach you get from the on-site than you would if it was, hey, we're going to buy this deal, put 10-year debt on it, and 24 months later, hey, by the way, we're selling it. So I think that we take the same approach with everything, and just like management, understanding who your investors are from our standpoint, we talk about that all the time. But knowing the right clients is probably important as well.
Yeah, no question. I think that speaks, John. That's good clarity. I mean, it just speaks to, we've worked together a long time, but I think that there's a good partnership between our two camps, right? In the time that we've worked together, it hadn't been perfect. Like there's been ups and downs on it. There's been, our group, what I tell folks, if you're looking for a perfect manager, you got to keep looking. We're not going to be that, but we're going to be pretty good. And we're certainly what we can bring is a lot of dedication, a lot of effort, but property management is just one of those games that, there's no day is ever the same. You get a lot thrown at you and you got to be able to roll with the punches a little bit. And our two groups have done that well. We've done that well with the majority of our clients. And so that makes the difference.
Yeah. I'm really curious, not to change gears completely, but you touched on it. Things get thrown at you all the time. What's some of the bigger, I guess, misconceptions from, the owner's side that you wish they understood about your side of the coin? Because I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, we get it from our side with investors as well as managers not understanding 100% what we do. What's some of the things on your side that you think would help if we understood what was happening?
Yes, I really appreciate you asking that question. I think that is a great question, because I think if owners understand this question, it'll position them better to be able to partner with and work with their operator, right? Their property manager. I think more than anything, it's just a recognition and an acknowledgement that, no amount of planning, no amount of it can prevent a lot of what comes at you. We manage assets from A class to C class. We manage stuff, high end rents, low end rents, everywhere in between. The fundamentals of management are the same, whether it's $2,000 a month rents or $500 a month rents. The fundamentals are the same. The tactics. Can you guys see that sign there? There we go. The tactics and the approach that you take might be different. So some of the things that we would want managers to know is just like, if you've got a value add property that's in rough shape and your manager's coming in and they're trying to reposition this thing, there's going to be some messes along the way. There's going to be a lot of heavy lifting that has to happen on that. I mean, we had a manager not too long ago that had a really rough day, and the police were called to this particular property because the tenant came in and actually got physically violent with our employee, actually put hands on, and the reason for that is because this tenant was mad that they were being evicted, and our team's just following their protocol. But that is the reality for that employee at the site. So we work really hard at Link to try to create this fun culture where people enjoy working and we can attract and retain really good people. I think we've been largely successful with that. If I had to put my finger on one thing that I'd give a lot of credit to any of the success that we've had so far, it's that we've hired great people, and those great people have just absolutely kicked butt for us. But it is a sloppy, tiring, difficult job on a day-to-day basis. I think sometimes there can be a perception of like, why is this so hard? This just the property manager just goes out to the site every day and they just need to collect the rent. Well, it's tougher than what you might think. And when you're dealing with,
it's funny you say that, because the owners out there that so I'm on the complete other end of the spectrum, right? I look at property managers, I say, Jesus, like that's fucking tough. I couldn't imagine. One, hiring the right people is got to be super difficult. I mean, we have 3 people that work in our office full time. I don't want any more people in the office full time because hiring people is tough. And to manage 3,500 units, you got to have 100 plus people and maintenance guys and on-site leasing agents. And those people are not, let's call a spade. And I'm not trying to take anything away from them. That's not, a heart surgeon. That's a very difficult job to hire for. So from my standpoint, when I look at property management, I think it's super difficult. I've never had a job on the management side. And I think that's where where you were going. And I know from my standpoint, we talk about in the office, like, let's just say Nick decided to go, I'm done. I sit back and I look, it's like, wow, I'm going to have to figure something out really quickly. And that's why I think we've been successful with our relationships, because we work with 2 management companies right now, and they manage almost about 75% of our units. Nick, one of them in Columbus, and one of our managers down in Florida. But having the relationship that you can trust, because what you're about to say is that it's difficult. And I think that's what people need to understand, that it's not, it's not that easy to do. And if you want to go more into that, I think it's important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, it's funny. I think you've got the right outlook. You got the right perspective on it. That's one of the reasons why we enjoy working with your group, because I think you guys get the fact that, hey, crazy stuff happens on a day-to-day basis. And part of what we need to do is be flexible and be able to pivot and address things as they come up. We work on, putting a structured program in place to run apartments. If you think about apartments, apartment management, a lot of things are very cyclical, right? We collect rents, the rents are due on the 1st of every month, and, 3-day notices get, delivered on these days, and evictions get filed on these days. And so there's a lot of things that are very programmed, but there's also a lot of things that are not. And we're asking, by all means, as you were sort of pointing out there, John, you're asking relatively entry-level employees that may not have extensive experience managing people, managing conflict, managing, difficult situations. You're asking them to navigate some pretty touchy situations. And, we've had scenarios, we've had conversations. I've had conversations before with clients where it's like, okay, that, there's a gap between, this owner understanding reality, not so much, not generally for my reality, right? Like I work out in a more, controlled setting, a corporate setting. I get out on the sites a fair amount, but my day-to-day is not out at properties. It's that our people's day-to-day is out there. And I think it would help owners to, to try to make sure they understand that and understand what those types of issues are and how challenging that can be for the teams that they're employing. I mean, we've had scenarios where we've had murders on site. We've had scenarios of suicide on site. We've had scenarios of, major drug busts, different things like that. And like physical violence. That was the one I will tell you that I have not had that happen very often in my career, but it has happened, and it recently happened where, like I said, we had a tenant that came in and actually got, physically put hands on our employee. And so, of course, I immediately picked up the phone when I heard about it and called them and had to talk to that employee. But that was a really hard day for them. Luckily, there, nobody was hurt. There was nothing like that. The police department was called. But that can be the reality, depending on the type of site and the asset that you own. That can be the reality for that person. And, owners should try to keep that in mind, that it can be tricky. It can be tough to handle on a day-to-day basis.
I think it's really important. I think one of the key things you just touched on is that, commercial real estate is not just a numbers game; it's a people game as well. And when you hear a lot of people moving up from the single family space, everyone's like, "Oh, it's so much more about the numbers, right? If you can just get your NOI to this, it's worth X. You don't have to worry about the person walking into a house and hating the kitchen." You hear that stuff all the time. They're like, "Oh, you can take the emotional stuff out of it," and it's just false. It's not true. There's you're renting to people. You have people running the business. You're working with people every day to go through these properties and come up with a business plan. It's almost more so a people game than a numbers game sometimes. And I think people get too caught up in, if I can get rent to this and keep expenses at this, and they just focus on, the profit and loss statement and valuations and cap rates and stuff. They lose sight of the real picture, and that, this is more or less all based on having the right people in the right places to get the business plan executed.
Bingo. I mean, that's, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you nailed it. I tell our team a lot of times we're in a people business that just happens to manage real estate. And,
100%.
that is that's the hustle. That's the grind. That's the battle that, you know, I'm trying in terms of directing our company. What I'm constantly focused on is how do I go out and out compete my competitors on, you know, from a people standpoint. If we can hire better people and we can train those people better, and, you know, those people in turn go out to sites, they're the ones that you know, close the leases and make the decisions out at the property that ultimately make it successful. And, you know, my highest and best use of my time, what I spend a tremendous amount of time doing is just, I'm very fortunate. Like, I can tell you, we're the vast majority of sort of our key personnel, those positions have been filled with a phone call, not an online ad. You know, we've been able to, you know, leverage networks and get in contact with people. And that's what's made up the bulk of our team. So I think you hit the nail on the head there, Chris. It's a people game, and that's what we're focused on a lot.
Mm-hmm. What do you look for the most in people that you want to work with, both on the, you know, break it up into your company side, and then also, you know, investor ownership groups? What do you think is most important in the people you're trying to work with?
Yeah, it depends on the role. It depends on what we're sourcing.
Sure.
I will tell you that for site level positions, I'm not afraid to hire people that don't have a ton of experience. In fact, I generally sort of prefer that. I think we look for coachability. Some of the best employees that we've had have been young people that are smart, motivated, ambitious. They may not have a lot of experience, but they're coachable. And, you know, a lot of what we do is if you've got you're a smart person and you're coachable, and then you have, you know, senior management that does have the experience. So the senior management could come in and teach these folks how to do the job the right way. Those have really been our best employees. So we look for that. The only like major real deal killer, obviously beyond like, you know, background checks and all that stuff. We do all the normal things that employers do. And, and, you know, somebody's got to be qualified to work for our company. But the only real deal killer that I try to snuff out super early is, does this person fit our culture? And if they're not, you know, if they're not a culture fit, it's been the only thing that I would say has consistently, when I violated the culture rule, it has consistently failed. You know, either we've ended up firing that employee or that employee has ended up resigning. And usually they leave a little bit of a wake of damage behind them, either for a client or somebody else, because an unengaged employee is really, can be dangerous for everybody involved. And so, you know, we're trying to find people that are really strong culture fits, and it's why we spend, I mean, we do put a lot of time in trying to make sure that our employees enjoy their jobs. I learned that from my background, the development company that I worked with. We worked, and I was very proud to, you know, that company won, you know, I don't even know how many awards that they've won since starting their company, but they're a prominent group that has had a lot of success. And, you know, one of the awards, I was there with them for a long time. We won Best Places to Work for 3 consecutive years. I was really proud of that because I ran the largest team in the company. And the only way you win that award, it's actually a relatively big deal in Columbus. A lot of companies try to get recognized for it. And like, you know, they survey like 99% of your employees, and they really, you know, they do an in-depth sort of analysis to figure out if people actually like working there or not. And we won it a lot while we were working there. I was really proud of that because it's like, okay, you're building a team you're building a place where people enjoy working. And that's a cool thing to do. And so it's why culture is important. You know, your original question is what we're looking for in people. And I'm looking for people that are going to fit the culture that we're building. And if they, you know, whether they come from, I've had people that have done great with marketing backgrounds and, you know, finance backgrounds. We love to see, you know, professional education folks that, you know, we're in Columbus. We're lucky to have Ohio State in our backyard here. And so it's a tremendous recruiting ground for talented young people. And And that's what we do.
Awesome. In terms of diving into the, a little bit more into the real estate stuff, what's some of the stuff you've seen over the last 15 years as you've been in the market? If we want to talk just Columbus or, if you want to expand it further, what's some of the insights you've gleaned over the last 5, 10, 15 years that you think would be very important for, new or newish people to understand either about the market or as it relates to real estate as a whole?
Yeah. It's funny. We get calls quite a bit. As I mentioned earlier in the show, a lot of our clients are out of market, right? It's East Coast, West Coast, major markets, Chicago, Denver, different places like that, where folks are looking at Columbus, Ohio, and they're saying there's still tremendous value in this market, right? Like, we've been on a pretty long run of a strong tailwind in the multifamily market that, and we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know where we're at in the cycle no more than anybody else does. We do have the benefit of having an operator's perspective. And so it still feels like the market is very strong. But we get calls a lot. And one of those calls is like, hey, your local boots on the ground. Like, what do you think of Columbus? Tell us your thoughts on the market. And I think Columbus is a tremendous long play. I know a lot of people think that, prices have risen in Columbus and we're like things are overpriced. And my personal feeling is like, folks are going to look at this and say, these were the good old days of multifamily pricing in Columbus, because, it's a market that I think is going to continue to expand. I talked about Ohio State. My personal story, I grew up an hour and a half outside of Columbus. And I think like a bunch of people, I came to Columbus to get educated, and then I got a job and I stayed. And I don't think my story is unique. I think a bunch of people do that. And so, you have this academic institution that brings people in from all over the area, not just the state, but the entire region. And then they come here, and Columbus has got a strong enough, economy that those same people, I graduated on a Saturday and I started full time in a job on Monday. And I've never left, and I don't intend on leaving. And so I think you're going to continue to see Columbus grow. People worry about as Columbus being overbuilt. And, my reaction to that, I came out of a development, said multiple times, I came out of a development background. So I dealt with this like head on. This was a day in, day out sort of issue for us. We were building, and, whenever another competitor might be building up the street or whatever, you would always feel that in the absorption. Like, like you're just, crazy to think that doesn't have an impact when a 200 or 300 unit apartment project is being built. All of the competitors in that little area are going to feel the impact of that, but that doesn't mean it's overbuilt. I used to overreact to those things. That's a temporary blip in the grand scheme of, that community. They might be doing concessions. They might be doing something wacky to try to fill up a bunch of units. And that's part of the game that gets played, but they're going to fill up, and when they do stabilize, everything sort of comes back into equilibrium. And so, I don't worry about oversupply. I don't worry about overbuilding. I see the number of permits that are getting pulled. I see the new projects that are popping up around the city. I will tell you, we do the most as a fee manager, as a third party manager, a lot of, we manage what people are buying, and our clients today a lot of them are buying value add type deals. The A-class lease ups. I think most of the people that are buying A-class deals are folks that have in-house management. They don't need a company like ours. They've got their in-house management. And so, I think that I think the outlook in Columbus is very strong. I think our timing for entering the market in 2015 was good. If anything, it would have been good to be in a few years earlier, because I just feel like there's been a lot of demand here. Columbus has gotten attention from groups like yours, and I'm sure other groups that are similar to that might be listening to this podcast, right? That Columbus is probably on the list somewhere of places that they're at least looking at, and we've benefited from that. So I think the outlook for Columbus is really strong.
Awesome. I think it's, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, you touched on things on what we look like. Nick's a local, he's local boots on the ground, and we do believe in Columbus. We have been since 4 years. That's why we're there. We think there's, where we are in this market, we think there's runway in Columbus. We're also buying deals that have some problems. So we feel like if we fixed it, where we bought the deals alone, we feel like just fixing it would give it runway, but we also do believe in the market, and that's more important than ever when you're buying in a market cycle where we're at. I think that's one thing that we really like. And when our boots on the ground guy believes in that as well, it helps our business plan, knowing that I'm not trying to get Nick to reinvent the wheel. He's on our page. We're driving the boat in the same direction. There's really no push or pull. I never have to go to Nick, maybe on rents occasionally here and there, who doesn't want a couple extra dollars, but that's the only, other than that, we both see the property the same way. We see what it can be, what it is, and it's not going to take much, just a little bit of elbow grease and someone that cares. You're going to fix a lot of problems.
Yeah. I think one of the things you also touched on too, going a little bit different, was when you talked about the lease up and the concessions and disturbing the local market. I think that's one of the things that I struggled with when I first kind of came in 2016, 2017, was that this is a little bit of a longer term game, and stuff that happens over a couple months isn't necessarily going to make or break a deal. And I think a lot of times where things would kind of go wrong, whether it's a drop in occupancy, drop in rents, increased bad debt, evictions, whatever it is, over a month or two, playing out in the long run isn't the worst thing in the world. Obviously, you don't want to see it, but I think where, coming from a little bit more of the smaller side and from a flipping education background, where it was, if something goes wrong, you got to fix it quick because you got to be out of this thing. This is, all right, let's take our time. The ship will right itself, and, we'll get back on course because, things just take a little bit longer. So it's really interesting to hear you say that just from the lease up side, because that was something I had a little bit of trouble overcoming. And it was, months and months, if not years, of seeing it and actually going through the process a couple of times, being like, oh, okay, like that's not the worst thing in the world. So that was interesting to hear you touch on that.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. It's like, the same things that you're seeing, at least with our group, and I think this probably applies to most managers. I would assume, but the things that drive you guys nuts and seeing is probably driving your manager nuts and seeing too. At least, for us, it's like if occupancy is not right, that's the kind of stuff that keeps operators up at night, whether it's occupancy or collections or whatever these things are. We love to see sites that get up, and we like things to run the way they're supposed to, right? It's like, okay, the site's full, we're collecting rent, we're pushing rents, we're doing all the things, we're controlling expenses. That feels good. And so, but what I have learned is not to overreact to those blips, like, and especially if it ties into a larger concept of what you're trying to execute. Like, there are times where it makes sense to say, hey, you know what, we are going to drop occupancy down because it is going to, we need to get certain people out of this property, or we need to do X, Y, or Z. And, that might make the P&L look a little bit rough for a quarter. But it's short term. And as long as it serves the best interest of the property long term, that's the stuff that you should be doing.
No, I think that's really important. What do you think are, some of the things that you've seen over the last years that have changed kind of your business or the way you do things? Or, is there any experience you've had that have, given you big jumps up in, how well you run your business, things you do at properties, things you've changed in the way you operate your business or properties, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think technology is probably the first thing that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
We try to be a pretty tech-friendly company. I mean, we're a company that's run, primarily by, we try to be very open-minded to say the way we're running the company today may not be the way that we're running it 6 months from now. The tool that we're using today may not be the case. Now, there's certainly some value in getting on your platform and sticking with it, and just being excellent at what you have in place. But I think you're a bit foolish to ignore the effect that technology can have in terms of improving an operation. I think that, so tech comes to mind. I also think that, we're really trying to challenge, at least internally, and I would tell you, to be transparent, like we haven't shattered the property management, program yet, but we want to. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm largely doing things, in a similar fashion as a lot of our other competitors. I think to the extent we're doing it better than them, it probably comes down to because we work our asses off, we work hard, and we have a culture that's around that, if there's an issue, like, you're going to get the extra time out of our team to put a solution in place. Like, we're going to work hard. I also think we hire better people. I'm certainly biased when I say that. I love our team, but we, I think a lot of people, we had past clients that have sold, and I usually try to do I was really good about it early on. I may have slacked off a little bit more recently, but yeah, I would talk to the clients when they were on their way out and say, hey, give me some feedback. Like, tell me what we sucked at and tell me what we did really good at. And there was pretty consistent feedback that it was like, you hire great people, you hire pros, and you hire people that really get it and figure it out. And so I think we're winning. We've been winning from that standpoint. But where I was going with that is it's not like we've completely taken the property management business and turned it on its head. I'm still collecting rent the same way that a lot of other people are. I'm still doing a lot of the same things the same way that other people are. We're just trying to be a little more proficient at it. But I do think that there is a place. I tell our team, property management has to be one of the least innovative industries out there. Like, there's so many people out there that just want to do shit the exact same way for, that they've always done it. And I think we want to try to find ways to challenge that. And we are working on that. We've got a series of meetings set up internally that cycle each month, where we're putting some of our best people at really trying to look at and figure out how do we do this function different and better, and even what are the radical thoughts on completely redoing this, like challenging why do we have to do turns the same way today that turn-in units that every other company is out there. How can we create a better, more efficient wheel, and so we don't have the code cracked on that, but I think we've got our finger on certain ideas that our hope is always, our focus is always, can we do things more efficiently for our clients that will give us a competitive advantage over one of our clients because we're able to deliver more value for them. If we can manage your property better, whether through revenues or expenses, we can do it more efficiently than the next guy, then that's fantastic, and that's what we want to do. Right now, I think I think that our company will start to bring certain different ways of the different solutions into play. And I'm not talking about like we're investing into developing some new technology or anything like that. I'm talking about taking a process that has always run one way and saying there's a different way to do this. And if we can cut your costs by, 10, 20, 30% in a specific line item, we want to do that. And that's what we're focused on.
I love that. I mean, I think that's one thing that, why we work well together. I know Nick is going to, and his team, I'm on the ownership side, banging heads with managers because, you can't tell me, people, I know you have to advertise a certain way, but I know that as technology changes, as this world changes, things are going to change. And Nick's more open to that, where some management companies, are going to try and push you into the box of this is how it's got to get done and this is the way it is. I know I can speak because we've done it for, years now. There's going to be some give and take. And listen, I know that we're going to make some mistakes, but it's because we're trying things to make the overall business better. And without that, it's never going to get better. So I think that that's a really important part to, throw out there. Nick's our first manager. He's our first property manager on our podcast. There's a reason for that. I think that, people have to hear this side of the business and be okay with, you got to try new things. As long as the wheels don't come off the bus completely, you got to give it a shot, man. And I know that they're open to that. And I think anyone should be, because someone's going to change the business, because real estate as a whole is a sleepy industry. It's just, it's backdated. I mean, might as well go, no internet, but it's so antiquated. I mean, that there's even real estate brokers anymore. Like, it's really useless with Zillow, but there's something to be said about trying to turn the business on its head. And whether you're there or not, I think that, we got to try things. And I think that's one thing they do really well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're sort of, we take our clients, P&L statements, and we look at what are the heaviest line items that we can have direct control on, direct influence on, right? Like, we might not be able to change property taxes, but we can change turn costs potentially, or, and how can we do this different, better, cheaper, even if it's the same quality, but we can deliver it at less cost. Those are the types of things that we're looking at. To date, we've been investing really heavily. We have, almost dollar for dollar, like, we have plowed, any profits that the company's had back into the company to try to put tools in place that can benefit our clients. And that's not a salesy type comment that I'm making. Like, ultimately, at the end of the day, the growth of our company is contingent upon the satisfaction of our clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if we can keep our clients happy, that allows us to grow our portfolio. And so, that when I say we're reinvesting back into the company, that could be people. It might mean that we're hiring another role. And by hiring that role, you guys have access to an in-house resource that maybe one of our competitors doesn't have. I would tell you that I do think that we have, we're missing, plenty of things still at this point in time. Like, for a company that's been in business for 4 years doesn't have everything in place and 100% ironed out. But I do think we've got more resources than most companies our size have. I've had other people be like, well, I can't, I'm surprised that you hired that role. I'm surprised you hired this or did that. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, I'm playing the long game. If that comes at the sacrifice of some profits today, but it helps us grow our company, then that's what we want to do. So.
No, I love that. Is there anything specific that you've tried and tested and has either worked or failed that you can talk to, and what that was like?
Yeah, lots of stuff. I mean, I don't know why the first thing that comes to mind on that is some marketing things
Mm-hmm.
that we've tried but there's plenty of things like that. I mean, most recently we've made some more investments on some of our deals into social media type advertising, which is not a new concept, but
Mm-hmm.
but it's also not been one that we've marketed. We've not traditionally looked at social media to be a huge driver of qualified rental traffic, and we've invested into certain areas and had some impact on that. So I'd be glad to, I would tell you, having an open mind, from a marketing standpoint and looking at certain new things, it's really helped to, drive not only more traffic, but also like better quality traffic to some of our properties. And so, that immediately comes to mind. We've also put some tools in place. I talked about investing into certain things. Like we ran into a lot of the same issues of all the same issues that all the other managers out there that had bumped into. But we've tried to purchase certain tools that give our teams the ability to provide better service. And so, that might sound like a silly example, but I was out walking a property with a investor, a potential new client at one point in time. And he was looking at this property to buy, and he pointed over at the corner of the property, and it's like all these mattresses and things like that are stacked up, and a bunch of trash where clearly the maintenance team had done a set out or had an eviction or something like that. And he was criticizing that, and I said, hey, look, man, like that's the reality of what this site team deals with. Like we run into that same stuff. And he's like, yeah, but I don't see any of that on your properties. And I said, well, we ended up purchasing a truck. Sounds silly, but we've got a truck that drives around and hits every one of our properties, and we can do it very cheaply, like versus calling a private haul company out to get rid of this stuff. But we've got a tool that hits the sites, gets that stuff cleaned up, swept up, because it's a reality. I mean, it's a reality of what happens. Somebody, whether it's a unit has bed bugs or somebody gets evicted or you name it, like that stuff shows up on this particular asset, class of properties. It was a C-class property. So that was an example of us trying to do something a little bit different that delivered some value to our clients. And, ultimately they look at their P&L statements and they don't even really realize that we have that going on.
Right.
And it keeps their sites clean. It's insignificant from a cost standpoint on their property. And they just know that their sites look good. And so I think having managers that are just open to looking at ideas like that, I would assume there's a bunch of my competitors would not want to approach it that way, because it's a kind of a pain in the ass for them too. It's like another thing that they have to manage. They have to make the investment into the equipment and do all that stuff. And so they don't want to do that. They'd rather pick up the phone and call a hauling company to service, but the person that kind of loses on that scenario is the client, because they're going to pay commercial rates to get that stuff done.
No, I think that's an awesome example. I think that's probably a really good place to wrap up. Nick, why don't you tell people best place to get a hold of you, find more information out about you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, no, thanks for giving it, guys. John, Chris, really appreciate you guys having me on. It's cool. It's fun. I've not done this before. Property managers don't usually get interviewed, man. We usually get yelled at. We don't get to be on podcasts. So
don't worry, that other call is coming tomorrow. So
yeah, no, we talked about the good stuff on here, but I've also I expect that call as well. No, thanks for having me on. If anybody, what I try to tell people is that we want to be here, be a resource to you, whether you buy a deal here in Columbus or whether you just want some perspective on one thing or another. Feel free to reach out to us. I ask people usually to email me because my phone never stops ringing, and 90% of them are telemarketers. So when I see a call that I don't know, a lot of times I don't answer. I take John's call, but I miss his call sometimes. But usually I always take his call. No, but feel free to reach out to me. Our web address is www.linkapm.com. LINK, A as in Apple, P as in Paul, M as in Mary.com. You can check us out on the website. Feel free to shoot a message through there if you have any questions, and those will make their way to me. Same thing is people are welcome to email me directly. My email address is Nick, N-I-C-K, @linkapm.com. Same URL. So pop me an email. I'm always plugged into email. I'll get back with people quickly, and appreciate you guys letting me come on with you today.
No, for sure. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. I think that this is a side of the business that, from our seat, people don't know about. There's a lot of people that are teaching people how to buy deals and teach them what they know about management, and what they know about management. It looks like it's all grasses are green and there's roses and flower petals blooming everywhere. But there's the unfortunate side, when someone slips and falls, or when the police break down doors and seize things. that's the real side of management. And Nick's going to give you the truth. And I think that people have to understand that it's not that easy. It's also gloryless. You do a good job, you get fired because they sell it. You do a bad job, you get fired. So it's you're in a lose-lose business. So that's why it's important that your manager knows your plan. So you're all on the same page and you're working towards the right goal. But, love you having you on. We'll definitely have you again. This is going 12 rounds in property management. This was, the bell just rang to start the first round.
There you go.
There's a whole hell of a lot more that we could talk about. But, as always, Nick's a good friend. He's our manager. He's my go-to. If you need his contact, if you didn't catch it, we'll put it in the notes. Reach out to me, reach out to Chris. We'll get you his contact information. But Nick, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming out and letting us have you on our show.
Thanks a lot, fellas. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.